Hello, and thank you all for attending tonight, especially thank you, candidates who have agreed to participate and giving everybody who's watching, most of whom are on video, the opportunity to learn about you so that they can vote for the candidates that best reflect their values and whose experience best reflects the influence that they want determining justice. This is an impartial, informative forum. There will be no endorsement tonight. I will be your moderator. My name is Toni Momberger. I'm the executive editor of the organizer and primary sponsor, Follow Our Courts, tonight. Follow Our Courts is a community service providing information to the Inland Empire about legal cases, legislation, the legal industry. There is no cost to subscribe. You just enter your name and your email for full access to all of our present and past content. And if you like, you can get emails sent to you notifying you when there is new content under the topics that you indicate that you are interested in. Those might be homelessness, laws affecting small businesses, criminal cases in your area, or bills proposed by your local elected officials. During this forum, attendees who subscribe may react to candidates' answers in real time and take a straw poll at the end by going to followourcourts.com and clicking on Riverside County Judicial Candidates. How are they doing? There are a series of questions. For every single question that I'll ask tonight, it lists every candidate's name, and you can click on the ones whose answers you thought were the best. And at the end, you can say who you feel you're going to vote for. There's only one submit button, though, so wait till the end before you hit submit. Thank you also to our co-sponsors, Riverside City College, for donating the venue and making the parking free tonight, and to McCune Wright Arevalo for all of the swag and the banners and the web support and the staff, and for funding Follow Our Courts. Tonight's format will be traditional. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to give an opening statement, 2 minutes to answer a question, 1 minute to give a response if a candidate is mentioned specifically, and then a 2-minute closing statement opportunity. We have a lot of candidates tonight, which means we can only get about 3 or 4 questions, and I'm hoping that that you won't take all the time you are allotted. But of course, you are welcome to do so. I'm hoping that in the end, if anybody was hoping to meet and greet the candidates, that you'll have an opportunity to do so. Although we had so much time at the beginning, we probably don't need that. I apologize for the delay. If you post on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or YouTube, please tag Follow Our Courts. We are just at Follow Our Courts, and use the hashtag RivJudgeForum. We are tweeting under that hashtag during the event. So let's meet the candidates. There are 4 open seats in Riverside County and 26 incumbents, all of whom are running unopposed and were not included in this event. For the open seats, there are 10 candidates that will be on the ballot, 9 of whom are here tonight. Going in alphabetical order, in the race for Office 26, we have Court Commissioner Eric Isaac and Deputy District Attorney Jason Stone. In the race for Office number 4, we have Senior Gang and Homicide Prosecutor Amy Zua-Barajas, who is not participating tonight, Deputy District Attorney Natalie Lowe, and Criminal Defense Attorney and Sole Practitioner Richard Swanson. In the race for Office 28, we have Deputy District Attorney Christy Kirk, Deputy District Attorney Francisco Navarro, and Criminal Defense Attorney and Sole Practitioner Christopher Welton. In the race for Office number 11, we have Court Commissioner Laura Garcia and Deputy District Attorney Jay Keel. I'm going to have you give your opening statements in alphabetical order by race, by office race, and I'll reverse the order for closing statements. I will alternate the order for every question, and I'm going to rotate which office goes first, which office race will go first. So, starting with Mr. Isaac. Mr. Isaac, I invite you to give your opening statement. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this. This gentleman down here, Newton, is going to hold up signs that indicate 1 minute left, 30 seconds left, and the red light means stop. Thank you.
Mic on? Can you hear me? All right, first of all, I wanted to thank Toni Momberger and Follow Our Courts for putting on this important forum. And again, good evening. My name is Eric Isaac, and I am a Superior Court Commissioner for Riverside County. I have been a Superior Court Commissioner for 10 years, and in that time period on the bench, I've handled thousands of cases. Those cases include criminal matters, family law matters, and civil matters. Additionally, I'm a proud veteran of the United States Air Force for 10 years serving my country. Also, I finished up my time on active duty actually right here in Riverside County at March Air Force Base. My slogan on my website is Experience Matters. And to me, it's more than a slogan, it's a fact, because there is a fact that there's a looming crisis in our courts right now. And that crisis is because of the corona pandemic. There is a huge backlog of cases that need to be tried. It has not been this bad in our county since August of 2007, when the state of California had to send down strike force judges to come into our county to help with the backlog. We're at that numbers right now. And I was here during that time in 2007 trying cases at the time, and I was an attorney, and it gets real bad, and it got bad to the point of felony cases having to be dismissed because they got to the last day. All judges and commissioners have to go to what we call judicial college and new judges orientation. At the new judges orientation at judicial college, this is where attorneys learn to transition from being advocates, be it if you're a DA, a defense attorney, civil attorney, you're transitioning from that to being a neutral arbitrator of justice. I did those classes 10 years ago, and it's important to note that if I'm elected, the next day, the presiding judge can give me a felony calendar of those backlog criminal cases, and I can do them right away because I have that experience. I look forward to speaking with you further during this tonight's evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac. Mr. Stone is next.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for putting on this wonderful event. It's always a great opportunity to come out, meet members of the community, and let them know who they should vote for and make informed decisions. I am a deputy district attorney in Riverside County. I've been a prosecutor since 2006 in our office. I have worked in all regions of the county, which makes me uniquely qualified to go serve wherever I am needed. I've worked for 5 years in the Indio office. I've worked for several years in Southwest, Riverside, and the last couple of years in Banning. I'm intimately familiar with all of the unique intricacies of all of the regional courthouses, and I can step right in on day one. In fact, one of my assignments was managing a felony criminal calendar where we were handling over 100 cases a day, and I would be able to help expedite the process. A little bit about me: my wife and I are currently raising our 5 children just a couple miles from the house I grew up in southwest part of the county. I'm a vested member in the community and have been my entire life. One of the things that has driven me to this point is my special needs daughter. And in experiencing the criminal justice system and having the humbling experience of a disabled child, really opened up my eyes to some of the needs that we are lacking. I've been very, very supportive of courtrooms that are dedicated towards mental health. I've worked with doctors and defense attorneys to advocate for defendants to get mental health treatment. I think there's no one size fits all for our cases, and every single case, no matter whether it's family, criminal, civil, needs to have individual attention paid to the particulars of that case. Every single person who comes into court probably doesn't want to be there. And we have to recognize that that is their current situation. Having the patience that I've learned through my family situation to handle children, to work with people who aren't on their best all the time, has been such a wonderful, eye-opening experience for me. and it's transformed how I view the world and the criminal justice system. I'm experienced in all types of serious cases, and I'll be ready to go on day one no matter where I'm sent. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to the questions this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Ms. Lowe is next.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Natalie Lowe. I'm Senior Deputy District Attorney with the Riverside Deputy District Attorney's Office. District Attorney's Office. I have been there for over 15 years. I have worked a range of assignments, everything from child molestation, domestic violence, rape, and even murder and death penalty cases. I have been assigned to the appellate unit for the last 10 years, where I've currently traded in post-conviction work and basically reviewing errors made by sitting judicial officers. I think this makes you uniquely qualified, not because it gives me some kind of legal encyclopedia, but because it makes me realize what I don't know. And what I don't know is a lot. I learn something new all the time. I think to be an effective bench officer, you need to be prepared to learn something new, admit when you don't know something, and take a deep knee bend and figure it out. A good bench officer tries to get it right, admits when they're wrong, and then they tries to fix it if they can. I think my experience in appellate has shown that taking that time to do that prevents a case from coming back 10 years later, 25 years later. It's just the best use of our judicial economy. So aside from that, I met my husband in the DA's office. He's also a DA. He is currently assigned to the Banning branch. We have 2 children together, Walter and Oliver, ages 4 and 2. He is also a United States Air Force reservist, and he spends his time at Edwards Air Force Base primarily processing COVID exemptions because he's a judge advocate general. So I look forward to answering your questions tonight, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe. Mr. Swanson.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. And thank you for following the courts for putting on this event. And I'm honored to actually be in presence with all these other distinguished individuals here. And I want to thank all of you, my supporters, my family, my friends who are present here today. I'm truly honored and I've indicated that I'm trying to become a Superior Court judge. And at this particular point, I believe that I am your next Superior Court judge. I was born and raised in Downey. I come from a middle-class family. After graduating high school, I didn't go to a 4-year college. I went to a community college like the one we have here. And I did that for a while. At the same time, I then started working for the gas company to support my family, the Southern California Gas Company. I was impressed, and it changed my life, working for the Southern California Gas Company in South Central Los Angeles, because I encountered people that were much less fortunate than myself, and they weren't able to afford heating and plumbing and all the necessities of life. And if I didn't repair their appliances for them, they weren't able to feed their children, they weren't able to have hot water. And so that actually formed my intent. And I decided at that point, with all of that information and with all of that experience, that I wanted to help other people. And that was my goal and basis for becoming an attorney. And I've been an attorney now I've been in Riverside County I've been in Riverside County for 33 years. I've been an attorney for 25 years. And during that time, I've had the opportunity to work some of the most difficult cases that the court has. I've done 9 death penalty cases, and I'm continually working forward to doing all of these difficult cases. I've overcome a lot of tragedies. In 2011, my son was killed by a drunk driver. Additionally, in 2015, I lost my leg to medical malpractice. So I know what tragedy is, and I also know what it's like to be a victim. And I know that victims and victims' families will be able to hear their voice in my court. And I want to make sure that I'm firm, fair, and honest based upon all of my past experiences. And I believe that these experiences that I've had in getting to where I am today basically exemplifies that I'm the right choice for the seat number 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swanson. Moving to the next race, Mrs. Kirk.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. Thank you for hosting us tonight and allowing us to all introduce who we are and why we all believe we're the best candidates. My name is Christy Kirk, and I've been a prosecutor with the Riverside County District Attorney's Office going on 17 years. Before I tell you about my career, I want you to know who I am and where I came from. I grew up in a very small farm town in Northern California, Kelseyville. The same 90 people I started kindergarten with were the same 90 people I graduated high school with. My father worked for a geothermal plant for PG&E, and my mom worked in baking. They taught me work ethic. They taught me to never give up, to enjoy the failures, and to keep moving forward. I was the first in my family to go to college. I worked my way through junior college in Santa Rosa, graduating with high honors, transferred into UC Berkeley, graduating with high honors, and moved to Sacramento for law school at the University of Pacific, St. George. In my 3rd year of law school, I was hired for the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. It was always my dream to be a district attorney. My family, I met my husband in the desert. I was hired specifically for the Eastern Division by Grover Trask. My husband is a probation officer. He's been a probation officer his whole career there in the desert and brings a completely different aspect to the table from what a prosecutor does. He brings softness and rehabilitation and hope. With my husband, we have 2 beautiful children. Our son Hayden is 9, and our daughter Hazel, we call her Hurricane Hazel, she's 4. And on a daily basis, she reminds me of all the things I did to my parents growing up, but she also gives me my why. The reason I keep getting up, the reason that I show that we can accomplish anything we set our minds to. I've been a prosecutor for 17 years, and over the course of my career, I've been in all units. I started in misdemeanors and worked my way through domestic violence, but primarily I have focused on gangs and homicides. I am one of the only prosecutors in the entire state of California to implement gang injunctions and to keep editing them to change with the times and to make sure that they are fair. I have been recognized numerous times for my work in the gang unit, including being the gang trial team leader in Indio. I was a vehicular homicide prosecutor for 4 years and earned the award of Mad Prosecutor of the Year for Riverside County in 2019. I have shown leadership throughout the office in Indio, and based off of all of these qualifications, I think I am your candidate for seat 28. I appreciate the time tonight to show you why that is and who I am.
Thank you, Mrs. Kirk. Mr. Navarro.
Yes, thank you for hosting us and thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Francisco Navarro. I'm a judicial candidate for seat or office number 28. I believe that if I was elected, I would bring professionalism, I would bring experience, understanding, and empathy to the court. I believe that I have those qualities because of my background. I grew up from 2 immigrant parents who worked very hard to give me the opportunities that I've had. And I've taken those opportunities that my parents in this great country have given me to succeed in life. But growing up was not easy. I grew up poor. I didn't speak the language when I started school, and I had some disabilities that I had to overcome. But because of the opportunities and the hard work ethic that my parents provided in me, I had the opportunity to go ahead and do something with my life. It started off at an institution just like this, a community college, where I went for 4 years. I'm not embarrassed by that. I'm actually very proud that I spent 4 years there because I paid for it myself. I realized how important education was, and it allowed me the time to really figure out what I wanted to do, because from that moment on, it was, full force forward. From then, I went to the University of California, San Diego, where I graduated in 2003. I then graduated from law school at Western State College, University in Fullerton in 2006. I passed the bar, and my first experience in the legal field was while I was in law school, and then after I graduated, the bar was legal aid, where I worked with the disenfranchised, those that are poverty-stricken, the elderly, all the individuals who can't afford legal services, and legal aid provides that for them. And it could be bankruptcy, divorces, landlord, tenant. I worked on all those different types of issues for those in need. After I left legal aid, I spent the last 15 years with the Riverside County District Attorney's Office. I've been in every unit pretty much in the office, including some that don't exist anymore, from misdemeanors to the drug unit, gang unit, tribal gaming, crimes against police officers, prison crimes, grand theft auto, domestic violence, and I'm currently in the public integrity unit, but I've been in that unit pretty much the last year or so. But I've always done my job properly, and I think that's why I'm endorsed by the district attorney, Mike Hesford, as well as the appointed public defender, Steve Harmon. As a judge, I think it's important to have an understanding of the impact your decisions make on the community. It's important to have that legal and professional experience. I believe I have those characteristics, and one of the main reasons I believe I have those characteristics is because I'm endorsed by 27 different judicial officers who have seen in me all the qualities necessary to be a judge. That's given me the confidence to go ahead and go forward with this dream of mine. Thank you for your support. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Navarro. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, good evening. My name is Christopher Welton. I think there's a couple things that clearly distinguish me from the other candidates. Probably the first one is this. Looking at the table, there are really some fantastic lawyers here. But I'm the only lawyer who has more than 30 years experience. I was admitted in 1991. I've done over 100 trials. I'm admitted to the United States Supreme Court. I have represented clients in criminal courts, civil litigation courts, family court, mental health court, veterans court, child dependency court, and juvenile court. I have more experience in all of the courtrooms that a judge might be assigned to than I believe any other candidate. I agree with Commissioner Isaac that experience is probably the most important thing that a judicial candidate can have when they want to take this job on. The second thing that distinguishes me is this. I've already done the job. I've been a judge pro tem in Riverside County since 2006. That means I volunteer my time and I'm asked to go to courtrooms and cover for appointed judges when they have some other reason why they can't be there that day. So I've taken the Judge Pro Tem educational class. I've been certified by the Riverside County Judge Pro Tem program, and I have acted as a Judge Pro Tem in Department 22, Department 21, Department 53, Department S104, in the old days 2006, also direct court, which was in Department S103. I have taken pleas from defendants. I have sentenced defendants. I have ruled on motions. I've already done the job and I've already worn the robe. So if elected, I'll be able to hit the ground running. The last thing is this. I've lived in Riverside County for over 20 years. I raised my children here. I'm raising my grandchildren here. We have kind of one of those modern families where now I have 7 children and 7 grandchildren. And I'm constantly reminded that I'm the second smartest person in my marriage. But that's probably true. Because my wife is a brilliant person, and she and many of the other people in the community have encouraged me to run for judge. And if elected, I believe I'll be able to step in that job and do what it takes to resolve our issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Welton. Moving to the final race, we start with Mrs. Garcia.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you to Follow Our Courts for hosting this and giving us the opportunity to share about ourselves. My name is Laura Garcia. I am currently a Riverside County Superior Court Commissioner, so I am already sitting on the bench in a misdemeanor criminal matter in our Southwest courts. I came to this position after a vetting process where I was elected by a majority of the judges of Riverside County, chosen to sit as a commissioner. So I am already overseeing multiple cases, hundreds of cases a day, so I am very well versed in the backlog that we are facing. And I'm coming now at this point to run for a judicial seat because my desire, my focus at this point is to bring representation to the bench. I think it's very critical that our bench represents the community that we serve. We're at a critical time where I think it's important that the judiciary keeps building on and fostering the confidence and the trust that our community has in the judicial officers who are making very oftentimes life-altering decisions for our community and our residents. So my hope to bring to the bench as I come, if I am elected, is that we increase that representation. We increase that representation not only in culture and race, because in a county that is 50% Hispanic, if elected, I would be the first Hispanic female from the Coachella Valley that would be able to sit on the bench. So for the community that comes into our courts to be able to see someone who looks like them and has a background like them, I think is a tremendous opportunity to build trust and confidence in what our judiciary is doing. But the additional representation that I think I bring to the bench as well is that of my career, my life experiences, and the sides of the law that I have been on both sides and practicing on. I was a public defender for 13 years, handling, ultimately when I left our office, handling some of the most serious cases. I also worked in our juvenile unit, handling matters for juveniles who just started in the criminal system. So seeing the start of people's lives in the criminal system and ultimately in the sentencing phase of it. So I'm very familiar with the impact that that has. But the representation I also bring is I grew up in a very poor, underserved community out in the Coachella Valley. I understand the impact that that has on families and life circumstances when our defendants or individuals that come to the court are usually representing, coming from poor and underserved communities. Again, it's important that they see representation on the bench. Again, I am a Riverside resident. I have been a lifelong Riverside resident, so I am invested in this county. I am invested in what happens in our judiciary as it impacts my family, just as it impacts our residents. So again, I'm hoping to bring that representation to keep building that confidence and faithfulness in our judiciary. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Garcia. Our final opening statement will be Mr. Keel. Am I pronouncing that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Follow Our Courts, for allowing us this opportunity to answer your question and tell you a little bit about ourselves. As you know, I'm a deputy district attorney. Well, how did I get here? It all started, I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland. I actually grew up in Baltimore City, downtown. My parents divorced when I was about 5 years old, so I spent most of my time growing up with a single mom. She had a high school education that worked at a car rental dealership. One of the things that she's instilled in me all my life is always be humble, be kind, and get an education. She's like, that is one thing that people can never take away from you. So we went after my parents did, and they were able to send me to military school. I went to military school for approximately 8 years. Then I went to college on the East Coast, and I came out to California after college. And that's kind of where I started my life after growing up. I went to law school, but I couldn't take the traditional way to go to law school. I basically worked during the day and I went to law school at night, just bringing forth that work ethic that my mother instilled in me at a young age. I've been now a deputy district attorney where I went right after law school for 15 years. I spent most of my career in the DA's office working in major narcotics. I prosecuted the cartel cases. I did that for about 10 years. I took that experience and was designated as a special assistant United States attorney. I worked on the federal side, also prosecuting cartel cases. I now basically work in the gang and homicide unit, handling complex gang cases as well as homicides. A little bit about myself, I'm married. I have a 12-year-old son, and one of the things I firmly believe in is being involved in the community. One of my good friends, Detective Dorado from Riverside Police Department, started Rain Cross Boxing Gym several years ago and asked me if I'd be involved. And without even a question, I was. It was our opportunity to get in front of these kids, these youth at risk, to show them that there was life outside of the gangs and maybe give them an opportunity to see that. So I would go in and catch mitts and spend time talking with them. We've had some issues since COVID, but hopefully we can get that going again, or at least get my involvement back up. I also coach a 12U travel baseball team, which we're getting ready to head and take these kids to Cooperstown, New York, in a couple of weeks, actually. I want to thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, and hopefully I can answer your questions, and if not, I'll talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keel. We're going to start with question number 1. Mr. Swanson, you'll go first.
Thank you.
What do you believe are some of the greatest obstacles to justice in Riverside County?
I believe the root cause of crime is poverty at this point and education. And based on my experience in representing these individuals that I have, we need ways to educate this portion of our population, giving them a chance to break the cycle and the life cycle that they've been created for them. We also need some scholastic system that emphasizes the importance of education and strengthening our school criteria and to help our youth, again, also aid individuals in finding a path out of this poverty. If this is accomplished, I believe our crime rate would be diminished and those individuals would become a productive member of society instead of the indigents that we have in our society today.
Thank you. Ms. Lowe, you are next.
One of the areas I have had the opportunity to practice in is in mental health. I was lucky enough to argue in the California Supreme Court in a mental health case, and based on the last 10 years working in that, I think that inadequate understanding, inadequate resources, and most importantly, inadequate funding for mental health programs really is kind of the root of inadequate justice and the holistic perspective that I think is needed when prosecuting cases. And obviously, I'm speaking primarily from a criminal standpoint, simply because that's been my experience for the last 15 years. I know that the California legislature has taken strides to address the mental health concerns and the kind of recurrent cycle of inadequate mental health treatment and people who reoffend by virtue of the fact that they don't have adequate care. I think that if we can address that with adequate programming and adequate funding for said programming, then we can help people get better and we can stop this kind of cycle.
Thank you. So first of all, obviously, I love our county. I think we're doing a lot of great things in our county. We have some different programs, from its mental health program, the mental health court. We have the homelessness court that we're working on. We also have veterans court. And so there's a lot of things that our county is doing. I think one of the things we can't do is really do it without resources. Riverside County is the fastest growing county in the entire state. It's the 10th fastest growing county in the entire country. Since 2010 to 2020, we've added 308,000 residents. So to keep up with that growth is very difficult. And I think that that's the number one issue that we have, is keeping up with that. The more resources we have, or that we're being able to give, if we can then attack some of the problems that we have and keep doing some of the really positive things that we're doing. But other than getting more resources out, I think that's the biggest issue that we face.
Thank you. From that same office race, Mr. Walton.
I think that clearly the number one obstacle to justice in Riverside County is actually funding. It's money. We have excellent lawyers in this county. We actually have a very highly qualified sitting bar. The existing judges which we have are top rated across the board in all of the departments. But what we don't have is we don't have enough funding for the sheriff's department and all law enforcement. We don't have enough funding for the court system to open up all of the existing courtrooms and courthouses, which we already have in Riverside County. A lot of the courtrooms in Riverside County are dark because we can't fund either the sheriff's department to staff them for security, or we can't fund the clerk's office for staffing for judges and for the district attorney's office, the public defender's office, the county council office, to fill those courtrooms and handle the case flow that we need. We have the professionals here. We already have the facilities here. What we need is the funding to run at 100% capacity, and that will bring justice to Riverside County.
Thank you. Mrs. Kirk.
I think you can tell that you have some wonderful judicial candidates when we all are identifying the problems that face this county. Piggybacking on the lack of resources and the lack of funding, I think we have to go back to a basic level of the funding of law enforcement and the distrust that our communities have because of what's happened. I think that law enforcement is having a hard time retaining and hiring qualified law enforcement officials. And because of that, citizens who are calling in aren't getting the services that they need because there's a lack of law enforcement on the street. And they lose the trust in the system as a whole, because they're not getting the resources or the attention that everybody deserves in this county. You follow that forward, and there's a general apathy now because of that, with the whole justice system as a whole, with all of the faces that have been identified. We have a huge criminal backlog in this county. Mr. Walton hit the nail right on the head. We have open courtrooms across the county with no judges and no court staff, but plenty of attorneys here to try the cases. And so in addition to resources and funding for the courts, we have to start at the very beginning of the justice system and give the trust and resources back to our law enforcement.
Thank you. Mr. Keel.
Thank you. I think everybody here is focusing on the same issue that I see before us, and it really comes down to funding. One of my biggest concerns right now is the backlog that we have in Riverside County. And I bring that up now to answer that question because it's delaying people that have been sitting in custody their opportunity and their due process rights to have their jury trial, as well as it's affecting victims of crime to have their day in court because we can't get these current jury trials out. An example, today I was talking to the master calendar judge, and we have 14 trial courtrooms operating right now to handle criminal trials. I announced ready on a homicide trial. Defense attorney announced ready today on a homicide trial. There was no available courtrooms to handle that trial. Against the defendant who basically was not waiving any additional time, the court imposed 30 days. So now this family, as well as this individual, have to sit back 30 more days before hopefully they can get to court. So I think this is one of the biggest problems facing Riverside right now.
Thank you. Mrs. Garcia.
Thank you. So the question was, what are the obstacles to justice?
What do you believe are some of the greatest obstacles to justice in Riverside County?
I think one of the greatest obstacles to justice right now in Riverside County is equal access to justice, and whether that is being given to all of the residents of Riverside County. And I premise that not on just equal access in our criminal system, as I understand that it's a very important, critical area, but it's not the only area that our courts deal with. It's important that the courts take into consideration of any individual who walks into our courts is coming in on equal footing with anyone else that is in that party, and in that matter, and in that issue. And I think that's one of our biggest obstacles right now is in the inequity that is there, the access that people have not only to the criminal system, but the civil system, the family court system, the juvenile system. And that lack of equal access, I think, is what fosters the distrust and the uncertainty. When individuals don't have the funds themselves to hire their own counsel, whether that be in a criminal matter or a civil matter, or they don't have the funds to even begin a case to address a wrong that they may have had, is denying that equal access to justice. So I think that's one of our biggest obstacles, that if we are not providing that for our residents, then again, they won't have that faith and trust in our judicial system. And so I believe that's one of our obstacles that the courts need to focus on, to ensuring that everyone who walks in is on equal footing, and whether that is provided through education, through resources, through services. That's what I think our point is right now, focusing on.
Thank you. The next office, we're going to start with Mr. Stone.
Without a doubt, one of the greatest obstacles we have right now is simply the lack of resources in our county. We have open judge positions right now that the governor hasn't filled. We have courtrooms that are sitting empty that could be put to use, but we don't have the judges for them. Changes in the laws and practices for retired judges have greatly impacted our county. Our county got used to relying on retired judges to fill the needs of our county. We don't have enough judges. San Bernardino County doesn't have enough judges. Our region has been ignored for so long that we have to wait for people to retire to come back and sit on assignment to help fill the backlog and undo what has been, a denial of services to Riverside County. With that, we also have to be open-minded. We have to be prepared. We have to be ready to, when the COVID restrictions are done, we have to be ready to go. We have to have judges in their assignments. We have to have attorneys ready. We have to have law enforcement ready. The greater the backlog, the further our resources are thinned out on all levels. Attorneys have mismanaged caseloads. Law enforcement have too many ongoing investigations. They're trying to get to court and nobody can move cases forward. So what we have to do is we have to use every tool in our disposal to give access in all facets. People who have wanted divorces need to get resolutions. People who have conservatorships need to get resolutions. People who are trying to gain access for employment lawsuits, they need resolutions. So we have to look inside ourselves and provide the services that the county actually needs to move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Isaac.
Thank you. Again, piggybacking mostly on what my colleague, Commissioner Garcia, was saying, is access to justice. Most people, there's a focus on criminal law, which again, I agree is important, but 95% of regular people's exposure to the court is traffic tickets, small claims, civil matters. I have the opportunity to work, those are our community courts. I've worked for almost 4 years in the Moreno Valley Court, in our community courts, doing the heaviest community court in the county, literally 100 arraignments a day, 40 traffic trials a day, 40 small claims matters a day. And those matters are important to the community. It's important if somebody is being sued for $10,000. That might sound minor when you look in the grand scheme of things, but you shouldn't have to wait 6 months to go to court. You shouldn't have to wait 8 months. And I have the report from the Judicial Council. Riverside County, we have 58 counties. Riverside is second in the state with a lack of judicial resources. We have 85 funded positions for judgeships. We're supposed to, based on our population, have 115. So we're 30 judges short. So we do need more judges. So someone is not waiting, 6 months to have their traffic matter heard, or 8 months for their small claims matter, or more importantly for their criminal matters, and again, their criminal matter being dismissed because there's no courtrooms. That's what we need, more access to justice.
Thank you. Our second question will begin with Mr. Welton. What element of your background and experience will be most significant in making you a fair judge?
I was talking with someone the other day, and they always ask me the same question. Why do you want to be a judge? Or why do you want to be a judge now? I've been a lawyer for so long. I think the turning point for myself, and most likely for everyone else who's on the stage, is at some point in your legal career, it's not about you anymore. So when I was young, I admired the great lawyers I saw in the court, and I always said, I want to be like them. I want to win a trial. Later on, after I left the public defender's office in San Diego, I wanted to join a civil firm. I did. I wanted to become a partner. I did. I wanted to have my own firm. I did. But all those things were about me. About 10 years ago, I realized it's not about me. It's about how many clients can you help? How can you really help the people who come into your office? Now, as a lawyer, I can maybe help 5, 6 people per day, but as a judge, I can help 100 people per day. Multiply that times 52 weeks, and you can make a much greater impact on the community when you realize it's not about you, it's about helping the community. That's why I'm running for judge.
Thank you. Mrs. Kirk, what element of your background or experience will be most significant in making you a fair judge?
Prior to COVID hitting in 2020, I would look back at the trials that I've done and the convictions that I've had. But in February in 2020, I was appointed by the office to be a lead attorney in Indio. And with that came managing 2 teams in the office, our felony prosecution unit, which had at least 10 attorneys, multiple clerical investigators, and the filing unit, which was responsible for filing all of the general misdemeanors and felonies in the Eastern Division. And then COVID hit a month later. So a month into the assignment as a leader in the office, I was faced with the only pandemic of most of our lifetime. And with that came the need to be calm and collected and be a leader and show courage. And I can say during that COVID pandemic, the teams worked together with the Public Defender's Office, they worked together with the Conflicts Panel, and of all regions in the entire county, the Eastern Division had the least amount of backlog cases because we worked hand in hand with recognizing what was happening and knowing that we had to make a difference during that time. Those attorneys kept their heads on their shoulders, and it was all from the top down. You had to set an example of how to handle yourself during times of challenge. And in a courtroom, it's no different. You are facing people who are at their worst, be it in criminal, family, even traffic tickets. Nobody's there because they want to be there. But as a judge, you have to demonstrate extreme judicial temperament. You have to hear them, and you have to address their problems and know that they're being heard. And through that time as a leader in the office, I think that's what, out of everything, despite any of those trials, any of the special circumstances, homicides that I've tried, that one experience makes me qualified to be the judge.
Mr. Defoe.
Yes, thank you. So as far as my background, what I think makes me best qualified to be a judge is really everything that I've gone through. I've been the little guy. I've been the person who was ridiculed because I didn't speak English. I've been the person who was ridiculed because he was poor and had holes in his jeans. I've been ridiculed because I couldn't speak. I had a pretty bad speech impediment when I was little. That's who I was when I was little. That's who I was growing up. I understand what it is to be a little guy. And that's one of the reasons I became a district attorney, because I wanted to make sure somebody was there to stand up to the bully. Somebody was there to stand up for the little guy. But I've been a prosecutor now for over 15 years. I've been on the other side now where I am in a position of power. I can decide how many years to offer somebody for a charge that they're now facing. I get to go to court and say, this is what the just sentence is. So now having power, you realize that you don't just forget who you were, who you've been your entire life. You have to look at the individual that's before you and decide what is the best thing to do for this individual. What is the best thing to do for this community? And having the background that I've been to, where I've been part of all of these different groups, socioeconomic levels, I will never forget who I'm fighting for and what I'm trying to do. For my community, for the individuals that come to court in front of me, I won't forget them. Because I've been through all of these issues myself. I understand that a lot of times people come to court and it's not in their best situation because they made a mistake, or because maybe they've gotten themselves into trouble. Maybe, they've had some sort of civil issue that resulted. They don't want to be in court, but they know when they come in front of me, if I'm so elected, that they're going to have somebody who understands them, who's going to hear them out, and is going to make the right decision based on the law and based on the facts.
Thank you. Moving to race for office 11, Mrs. Garcia. Can you repeat the question? I will. What element of your background and experience will be most significant in making you a fair judge?
I think the background in my life experience is what really plays a key part in making me a fair judge. On the bench, have lived and grown up in the inequities of life. I have lived and grown up in, as I stated, an impoverished community out in the valley. So I understand what effects, again, that has on one's life as they grow up, the impact that has into adulthood life. I understand those inequities that then play into people's life choices. And I also, as well, as a public defender, understood how those inequities affected individuals and led them down wrong paths and bad choices. I also, as a mother, am a child with a disability with Down syndrome, so I understand the inequities that come from families just trying to access systems and services and the impact that that has on them. So having that constant contact into the inequities that affect everyone in various areas of their lives, I think is what plays into then how I will view any case that comes before me. Again, whether that is a criminal case, a family law case, a civil case, when you have experienced those inequities, it gives you an empathy and an understanding to those that are then in front of you, putting their life decisions and their life issues in front of you, so that you then can look at them, have been where they are, understand where they are coming from. And I think that is what plays keenly into my ability to be a fair and just judge, should I be elected.
Thank you. Mr. King.
Thank you. I think it's not a simple answer. I think kind of with Francisco, you have to look at your whole life and your whole life experience. Growing up, I grew up in a very humble beginning. But I got to experience life. I got to deal with adversity. And it taught me a lot. I learned at a very young age about work. I started working when I was 16. I pumped gas. I did every job under the sun through college to pay my way. I roofed houses. I put up aluminum siding. I bartended. I washed dishes. And growing up in Baltimore City, I got to see all aspects of life. I remember one night taking my friend home after we got off work. It was about 2:30 in the morning. And we went into an African-American neighborhood where he lived. And I was dropping him off. And we got pulled over because I was a white guy driving an African-American male. And they immediately thought that I was in that neighborhood to buy drugs. And so I got pulled out of the car, thrown up on the hood, and searched. I've seen it all. I've lived it. I've experienced it. And I've also know what it's about to work hard. And I've worked through that. And I think that's what's going to allow me on the bench to be fair and impartial.
Thank you. For Office 26, Mr. Isaac.
Thank you. Like a lot of my colleagues, I grew up poor. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. I have one brother, but it was 6 of us. My parents kept foster kids. My father he worked at the post office for 30 years, never made over $30,000. The park, St. Andrews Park in South Central, felt sorry for us, gave us the leftover hot dogs and stuff in the summer. We were poor. And that experience of growing up that way, different people like that, and then moving on when it was time to go to college and asking my dad, hey, can I have $50 for the application for the college I'm going to go to? And he's saying, sorry, son, we don't have $50 to give you for that. Maybe you should go into service. And that's what I did. And got my education. Took me 7 years going to school at night. This was before online school. I had to take a class here and there. Took me 7 years to get my undergrad degree. I've never gone to school the traditional way. Went to, like Jay was saying, went to law school at night. So all of those experiences dealing with different people, different individuals has made me the judicial officer I am today. Those experiences, it's not an abstract question to me because I do it every day. I'm fair on the bench today. You can go to Department 21 in Riverside in the Hall of Justice and see that I do fair justice every single day. And if I am elected as judge, I will continue to do that as well. Be fair, listen to both sides, follow the law, and make a fair, honest decision based on the law, not based on any other things other than the law.
Thank you. Mr. Stone.
I was raised in a family dedicated to community service. My mom was the first female president of our local Kiwanis Club. And I used to go with her every morning and see people dedicated to the community who wanted to help other people. We were raised participating in groups like People Helping People, where we would deliver Christmas gifts to underprivileged. We would spend our holidays in soup kitchens, feeding the needy as well. And so when you're raised with these morals instilled in you, that we have to help others, it becomes more about the community than about the self. Then when I was blessed to have my daughter, we think all these great things about what our life is going to be like. And when she was 2 years old, we learned that she had autism. And that is something that opens up your eyes to a whole new world of what life is like for a lot of people. Autism is one of the most rapidly growing experiences and diagnoses in children. Almost 1 in 60 now will be diagnosed with that. And so to be able to recognize that not everybody has the same background, not everybody has the same experience. People have challenges. People need to overcome their challenges. And when they're in court, it's usually not their best day. But to be able to recognize that, to be able to see, look, what is it about this individual? How can we help them get through this experience? I have that experience through a lifetime of service and a lifetime now as a parent of living through things and helping people get through what is very, very difficult for them and assisting them navigating all kinds of systems for access to services that they need.
Thank you. And the final office for this question is for Office 4. And we start with Ms. Lowe.
So when I first decided to run for judge, because we need judges desperately, I did a bit of self-reflection and thought, can I turn off the advocate hat? You're an advocate for 15 years. You've been trained and you focus on one perspective almost exclusively, except when you're trying to anticipate the other side for 15 years. Could I do it? Because I think a good judge has to be able to do it. You have to be able to turn off the advocate and focus on what is the correct answer based on just as the law is written, not as how you wish it were written. So I thought back to a time in my life when I had to make that kind of empathetic bridge, for lack of a better phrase. And it's like Jason, when my son about a year ago was diagnosed with autism. I was suddenly faced with a 3-year-old who could not communicate very well, but he had big feelings and he saw and perceived the world differently from me, necessarily by virtue of his neurodiversity. So I thought, well, goodness, what am I going to do? How do I communicate with this person? And I realized that he works best when I stayed calm, I enforced the rules, and tried to meet him where he was. Tried to show him that level of empathy, even though his experience was not mine. So I think when you're like Ms. Kirk and Mr. Stone have said, when you're in court, whether it's traffic, probate, family, or criminal law, you're seeing people at their worst. Tempers flare, emotions run high. I think it's best for a judicial officer remains calm, enforces the rules, and meets people where they're at.
Thank you. Mr. Swanson.
Yes, thank you. I think it's a combination of both my life experiences and my practical experiences that will make me a good judge. Like Mr. Welton as a private attorney, I've also done civil law, family law, criminal law, and real estate property law. So I have all those experiences. Also, I do volunteer as a pro tem for the last 4 years, serving in many of the same courts that Mr. Welton has indicated, including small claims like Mr. Isaacs is presiding over. So I have a lot of practical experience, but I also have all of my experience that I bring in, my life experience that I bring into all of this, with the tragedies that I've overcome, the experiences that I have growing up and working for the gas company and seeing people and working with people. And as an attorney, I've been able to help thousands of people. I've had well over 1,000 cases. I've done over 80 jury trials to verdict. So I have a lot of those life experiences, and speaking with all the people that I've represented, which are mainly indigent people, individuals who can't afford an attorney. So those people are the people that I'm helping, and this will give me an opportunity to help all those other people that I see every day when I actually do pro tem work. And that's one of the most rewarding times that I have in my life, when I'm sitting as a pro tem. And that's why I believe that I'll be a good judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third question, we'll start with Mr. Keel. Name a change to our judicial system that is needed, or explain why none is needed.
I think we need to focus more on alternatives as opposed to just incarceration for low-level crimes. We need to figure out a better solution. I think we've started to make great strides. I know that the Riverside DA's office has pushed this through different diversion programs, through Veterans Court, and more towards now we're working towards helping out the homeless population. We have to learn to try to get individuals that need rehabilitation into those rehabilitation programs. We need to get these people back on their feet and back into society. Pushing people towards incarceration for death, we have to get to the root of the problem. And I think if we focus more attention and resources on these alternatives, it's only going to help us in the future. As well as we have to get ahead of our youth. We have to educate our youth. We have to give them a chance. We have to get them before they get caught up in the judicial system. I think we need more people like the community leaders that you see before you, getting involved with the community, getting in front of these kids, and trying to show them there is a life outside of the gang life. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Garcia.
I think a important change as well that I think has to happen, again, as I stated earlier, is really representation. I think our judiciary, it's time that really represents the community that we serve. That's an important element that I think will bring some, again, needed change and needed trust and confidence in that. The community, when they walk in those doors, should be able to feel that whoever is sitting on the bench, again, understands where they're coming from, has been where they're coming from, and that they feel that they will get that fair and just system. I agree with Mr. Keel as well that we do have to look at what are other options and alternatives. Not everything can be handled similarly from case to case, courthouse to courthouse, or matter to matter. Again, we're not just focusing on criminal cases, as my colleague Commissioner Isaac stated. There's so many other areas of the judiciary that needs focus and attention. And I think that is the changes that we need to make sure we're giving there, that the resources and the support are in each of those areas of law, because it's all of those others that also impact the rest of our community and our residents. So it's shifting the focus from not everything is around criminal, there's many aspects of other areas of the law and people's lives that we need to make sure we are putting resources and support and services, again, so we are providing that just system for all of our residents.
Thank you. Moving to the next contest, Mr. Stone.
One of the things that COVID has taught us is that we can do a whole lot more work remotely. Multi-billion-dollar companies have learned how to telecommute. Even in the courts, people have learned how to telecommute. It's important that we take those lessons of what technology allows us to help improve access for other people. It's difficult for people to take time off of work and spend their whole day waiting in court, whatever courtroom it is, to have their case called in 5 minutes and be continued. It's a waste of time for the litigants, the parties, and everybody else. So we have to take the lessons that we've learned. If I can do a life sex trial and have witnesses testify from Texas, there's no reason we can't have people who are in class maybe step out of their class instead of missing their entire day of school to be able to go in and make their appearance. We have the capabilities to start doing this. What we need is the spirit and the motivation to take the lessons we've learned and to continue to apply them to help improve access and stop the inconvenience of attending court for everybody in their lives. We can do it. We can make it easier for everybody to attend and get the access and justice that they need. We just need to be able to keep fighting for it and use those capabilities that we have.
Thank you. Mr. Isaac.
Thank you. I'm going to piggyback off again my colleague, Commissioner Laura. It's Laura from the office. And we didn't practice this, but I agree with her. Diversity is a real issue that in our local justice system, the Riverside Superior Court has been around since 1848. And in that time period, all those years, there's been exactly 2 African-American male judges in the history of our court. In the first one, my colleague and mentor, Justice Fields, was the first one in the year 2000. And the only other sitting African-American male judge is Judge Sterling out in India. So as a commissioner, I'm the only African-American male face that they see down in criminal court, and I think it's important for the community to have a reflection of more than just one type of individuals, just to keep it real. And I'm not saying that just because of my skin color. Again, I have the experience doing the work, and that's why I'm running. And again, that access to justice, I keep going back to that. That's what our justice system needs, to have those resources for people to get to court, for there to be enough judges to hear their case, that's what this justice system needs. Thank you.
I think it's clear, and it's been a common theme, that we need more resources. And they're not coming anytime soon. So how do we make more efficient use of the resources we have? As Mr. Stone said, COVID taught us a lot of things. It taught us how we can do things in creative ways. And in order to keep growing with the resources that we have right now, we need to continue to expand on technology. We need to be able to be flexible and learn from what we've learned in the past couple of years. But in addition, we need consistency in the courtrooms. We need expectations in the courtrooms to apply throughout the jurisdictions. We need start times that are consistent. We need expectations of how each attorney is supposed to run. We need consistency. And so instead of just wishing on the resources that we really do hope we get, we need to make use of the resources we have, and we need to apply consistent expectations in the courtrooms.
Well, what we need, definitely, we need more resources, but also we need to be more innovative. I think we need to focus our philosophy on a problem-oriented philosophy. If we're having crimes, a lot of crimes with our youth, we need to be more proactive. We need to be in their schools. We need to be in juvenile hall talking to these kids, letting them know the dangers of what they're facing. If we have overcrowded courtrooms, we need to figure out a way to do that better, whether it's remotely, whether it's by stipulated 1015 or continuances. We really need to look at what the problem is and figure out the best way to resolve it. I agree COVID has taught us a lot, but a lot of times we're forced to become innovative and creative in those types of situations. And we shouldn't wait until the problem gets so out of hand before we decide to do something about it. We need to figure out what the problem is, get together. I've been part of some of those meetings where the district attorney's office meets with the public defenders as well as the court staff, and together figure out what the main issues are, get together, come up with solutions, and figure out how to resolve this.
Well, I'm going to respectfully disagree with Mr. Navarro. I don't think we need more programs. What we need to do is become better at what we already do. We need to be more efficient. I am a small business, my law firm. If I'm not efficient with my time, I don't make a profit, and I'll be out of business. What the courts need to do, the change they need to make, is to get better at the practices that are already in place. So, courtrooms need to start on time. This cycle of endlessly continuing cases has got to end. Because every time a case is continued, it costs taxpayers in this county hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have police officers who are subpoenaed to come to court for a preliminary hearing and wind up sitting on a bench for 2.5 hours just to tell them that the case has been continued and they're going to have to come back to court 3 days later. That wastes the community's resources, and it also takes an officer off of the street. We just can't live with that. So what we need to do is we need to look at the systems that are already in place, hold people accountable, and just become much more efficient and proficient at what we already do.
I think the question is a very complicated question because there's a lot of things that are affecting the court and the efficiency and the working ability of the court. The lack of education with our youth has caused a lot more cases to appear in court. I think that the mental health issue has created a lot more cases that we have here in court. So I think that we have way too many complicated problems to answer this question directly. And not to add to it, but I think that there's also a problem with representation. There's a problem with individuals being not represented completely. An example of that would be the fact that, as far as our jury system is concerned, we pull jury panels from driver's licenses and voter registration. There's a lot of people out there that don't vote, that aren't registered to vote, that don't have a driver's license. And those individuals could actually come in and serve as jurors. And so those people are not being represented by the system because of the way we have this set up. We should probably set up some sort of system where the jury panel is pulled from our census, which is a much more broader range of individuals to bring those individuals in court to sit as jurors in our jury pools. But I recognize and I agree that all the other problems that have been indicated here today are all problems that this court system has. And I don't believe there's any one problem that can be solved that's going to fix everything.
As I touched on earlier, I really believe that mental health and lack of sufficient understanding and access to mental health is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, problem we face as a society and in our justice system, and not just criminal. I think it underscores family law. I think it underscores a whole host of societal problems. And in reality, the only way to solve that is adequate funding and adequate understanding, and that's just a slow time coming. I think we are at that point where we are getting adequate understanding, we're getting adequate programming. It's not necessarily funded, but I hope that that will happen, because I think that is one of the reasons people self-medicate with narcotics. I think that is a large contributor to our homeless problem, and I think that if our courts were able to address that adequately, we would see a greater efficiency to deal with other problems.
I think we'll have time for our fourth question. Mr. Stone, we'll start with you. How would you serve the court beyond case management?
We have to be innovative. I can help with building up new systems, working across regions, and I think one of the best assets I have is the fact that I have worked in all regions of our county. And so I can help bridge the gap, because what is important for the Eastern Division may not be important to the Western Division, but we can work together to build better systems in place, better practices, better protocols. So in addition to handling caseload, which I'll be ready to do from the very get-go, I think I can help build the communication between the judges, between the different courthouses, and work to build better systems that will improve our efficiency, that will improve, as Mr. Walton said, our proficiency, and will help engage the community and will help get access to everybody who needs it. We can do a better job if we work together, if the systems are built to help people like they're supposed to do. So I think that I'll be able to do that in addition to just managing whatever cases are assigned to me. I'll be able to work behind the scenes to help improve the court's efficiency.
I serve the beyond case management. First of all, case management is very important, as I stated earlier, because we have those lack of resources, and you got to have the ability to handle a huge caseload. It's just that simple, and to be efficient and do that. Beyond that, I'm involved in other programs for the court. For example, you can volunteer with the Judicial Council for the state. I work on committees to make different forms that the community fills out that are more proficient, that are more efficient, to make it more simpler for the public. I work on these forms, like for example, during COVID, we had to make up a whole new set of forms for unlawful detainer actions, for people getting ejected or moved out of their homes. We had to come up with the Judicial Council with new forms, and that's working beyond just case management, getting involved in these other programs, community outreach, how the court looks to the community, how we interact with the community. I'm on those committees as well. All of those things working together, working with the state, working with the local community, that's working beyond just the important tasks of case management. That's what I do on a daily basis.
So case management obviously is probably your primary job as a judge. But I think that the most important thing you can also bring to the table is what we already touched on in our earlier questions, which is, can you be fair and empathize and really let everybody be heard that's in that courtroom? Because at the end of the day, there's this fancy word that we use, like due process. Like, due process is what we think that if you go to court should be guaranteed to you. And what that really means, in my opinion, is just, did you have an opportunity to be heard, and were your words considered? And if that's the case, and you feel that the judge made a decision based on the law, again, as it's written, not as the judge wished it were written, and you were treated respectfully, that is what due process looks like. I think that I'm capable of that given my experience in my personal life, and simply by reviewing judicial errors for the last 10 years, while I hope to not make the mistakes and I don't fault them for their mistakes, again, it's taught me what I don't know. And I think that I would be able to take the time to to learn what I don't know, whether it is I'm assigned to a civil courtroom and it's something outside of what I've practiced for the last 15 years, I think that I would be able to bring that temperament and that appellate and kind of research experience to give people what I believe is due process.
Thank you. Moving to Mr. Swanson.
I think that a lot of the volunteer programs need to be expanded, such as the mock trial program for the individuals in the high schools. My daughter was in the mock trial competition for Martin Luther King High School, and I know that several individuals that were in that class also were in the mock trial program when I was there assisting, and many of them became attorneys. And so I think we also have to encourage individual attorneys to actually participate more in the Pro Tem program that we have, so that we can alleviate some of the issues that may be occurring in the court with regards to not having enough judges. If we have certain Pro Tems that sit for longer periods of time and have some sort of program or something like that to get people into attorneys into those programs, so that we can free up a lot of the judges so they can actually hear all this backlog of over 1,700 cases that we have that are pending trial right now. Thank you.
If we had had time for a fifth question, it would have been about addressing the backlog. Mr. Navarro, you're going to be next.
So I think on top of case management is just being active. I think there's a lot that each of us can do as individuals, and I'll give you what I do in the district attorney's office as an example. I do a lot more than just my job description. I am part of the community action team. The community action team is a group of district attorneys who are liaisons with each and every city in the county, so that we can help improve communication between the district attorney's office and each individual city. I'm part of the 4 working group, which is a group of senior level attorneys in the district attorney's office that help identify issues within the office and then come up with solutions to make the office run better, more efficiently. I'm part of the legislative committee within our office. That's a group of individuals who, again, it's attorneys and non-attorneys that look at potential legal changes in the law that could help our systems run better. I'm also a founding member of the Mission Bell mentorship program that we run out of the office. That is a group of attorneys, both from the public defender's office as well as from the district attorney's office. We've started to add other professionals as well that deal with going out to Mission Bell Elementary, making connections with at-risk youth, because what we've learned is that kids that are in 4th and 5th grade, if we can get to those kids, they have a better chance of having successful futures, because once they make it to junior high and high school, it's very difficult to change that. This is just some of the groups that I'm a part of, both inside in the office as well as outside, and I think these are examples of programs that are, when run correctly, make a huge improvement both within any organization as well as within the community.
Thank you.
Well, here's the secret. Case management is actually very easy. You get a calendar, it could be between 50 and up sometimes 100 cases, and you're going to have 7 hours to call those cases. What's much more important in the courtroom is this. As a judge, you need to make a connection with the people who are before you. And to do that, you have to speak with them with respect. You have to have some empathy. You have to be a fantastic listener. Because if you show those things, then the person before you could be a witness, could be a defendant, could be a crime victim, could be a litigant. They're going to feel like they're really getting their day in court, their moment in court. And then you have a chance for resolution. And there's incredible value in resolution. Court is incredibly stressful for anyone who comes in. They really don't want to be there, and they really want it over. But they want to feel like they had their day in court, like they were heard. When I'm pro temping, and in the afternoon we have the in-custody defendants, I always speak to them by their last name. Miss Jones, Mr. Smith, Mr. Howard, how are you today? And by showing them respect, they believe they're going to get a fair shot in talking to me about their case. And maybe we can resolve their case. And if we can, that makes it a very productive day and everyone gets to move on with their life.
Thank you.
We'll move to Mrs. Kirk.
I 100% agree with what Mr. Welton just said. To connect with the people in your courtroom, to be human, and to treat them with respect and have utmost judicial temperament is one of the biggest qualities that your judges should possess. But I think it goes deeper than just the courtroom. One of the most surprising things that I've learned during this journey is that everybody has no idea who your judges are, who they are in the community, who do you vote for. And the only way you are going to connect with people in the community is by going out there and showing them that you're human and introducing yourselves to them, going to the community events, showing that you are just like everybody else and that you can connect with anybody. The biggest thing that I've learned during this journey is to show people who you are, what you stand for, and why those qualities are the qualities that you want in a judge. And the only way you're going to do that is by getting involved in your communities.
Thank you. We're moving to Mrs. Garcia.
I think for me, the question is not what would you do, it's what do you do? Because as a court commissioner, I am already doing the case management. I'm already doing what goes beyond that. Case management, yes, is an important aspect, especially as we're dealing with this backlog of cases. But we cannot get lost in the case management and focus on efficiency and lose sight, though, of what everyone is there for, which is a just process for them. Again, whether that's in criminal, whether that's in civil or family, we cannot sacrifice those rights and that due process and those opportunities to be heard for efficiency and for pushing things through and for reducing that backlog at all costs. So my contribution is doing just that every day. In my courtroom, we have over 100 cases that we hear every day in criminal matters. Issues that impact people's lives, not only in that moment, but for years oftentimes to come. So it's important that, again, as many have said on here, that we are listening, that we are hearing people, and that we are giving them their day in court. I think that is one of the biggest contributions that we give back beyond case management, is still ensuring that we're protecting that fair and just process, because that is only the one area that's going to help us move on from where we're at this time.
Thank you. And our final question is from Mr. Keel.
Thank you. Kind of echoing Francisco in the sense that you need to be involved. At the DA's office, I carry a full gang and homicide caseload, but that does not mean that's the end of my job. It's being involved. I also teach law enforcement in various aspects of the law, Fourth Amendment, informant management, marijuana laws, whatever it may be. I've done over 100 trainings throughout Riverside County, and I've gone all the way to Colorado to teach. I think it's being involved, doing more, being part of committees like Francisco, being on policy, writing policies within our office to make sure that we're following the law, make sure that we uphold the highest level of integrity that we can. So not only managing a full caseload, but I think you also need to be involved. And I think that's where we need to keep going.
Thank you. We have just enough time to do closing statements, and we're going in the reverse order of opening statements. So Mr. Keel, you can begin.
First of all, I want to thank everybody. Thank everyone for coming out tonight. I want to thank the rest of the judicial candidates. Public service. For the past 15 years, I've given Riverside County public service. What does that mean? It means giving back to the community, benefiting Riverside County. When I look at these 9 candidates before us for these 4 judicial seats, no matter what happens in the election on June 7th, Riverside County is going to benefit. We're going to get 4 great judges. And I'm really proud and I'm humbled to be among these candidates that are before us tonight. What I bring to the table is my character, my work ethic, and my integrity. I'm going to carry that. I've carried that my whole 15 years as a prosecutor, and I'm going to bring that to the bench if I'm elected by the people of Riverside on June 7th. And I want to thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Garcia, you will be next.
Thank you. Thank you again for this time and opportunity. It has been a pleasure getting to share about ourselves. Again, I am asking for your vote for judicial seat number 11. Because as I stated, I am already there sitting, doing the hard job that is going to be ahead of us. I've already had the experience working in the courts, sitting every day, seeing what the issues are in front of us, seeing what our residents have to deal with and need addressed for them. So I believe I am that candidate for you. I will bring that representation that is needed, I said, across all areas, in life experience, work experience, just who I am as an individual. I will help to make sure that our bench represents the community we serve and provides that equal access to justice. I will be tough but firm, and I will be compassionate but decisive in all matters. And I think that is what's going to benefit our community. As I stated, I am invested in our county. I live here amongst all of our residents that will come into our courts. So for me, what happens on our bench affects me as much as it affects our residents. And so it's imperative that we give that equal access and equal justice to all. And I believe I'm that candidate for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walton, you're next.
Thank you for, excuse me, thank you for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Again, each of the candidates is really offering their service to the community. And the service that I'm offering to the community as a judge is this. I've practiced in every court. I've lived in Riverside County for 20 years. I've been a lawyer for over 30 years in all practice areas. I've already begun doing the job as a judge pro tem. So I'm kind of the known quantity. And what I'd like to do is get the job full time and to just get better and better and better at it. And as I said before, being a judge is not about you. Being a judge is about the people who come before you and helping them feel like the court system really does afford justice, and it really does afford them a chance to tell their story and have their day in court. And I believe I can give that to the people who come into our courts.
Thank you. Mr. Navarro.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I can tell you that I never thought I would run for office. It's not something that I ever considered, but I've been preparing for it for the last 15 years because I have dedicated myself to this community. From the moment I started, I've been volunteering and finding different ways to give back to my community. I've been lucky enough not to have to do it by myself. My wife started as an attorney just 6 months after I did. She just recently became a judge. She was appointed by Governor Newsom. She's the first Latina to ever sit on the bench in the Coachella courthouse in Indio. And together, we've always given back to our community. When we started early on, we started the Norco mock trial team. They had never had a mock trial team ever before that. We did that for 3 years. We've been part of the Mission Bell program that I spoke of before. We have spoken at community events, including the dual immersion program in our local school. What you're going to get from me, and if you vote for me, and if I'm elected, is you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Nobody's going to work harder than me to help them make this community better. Nobody's going to work harder than me to make sure that the laws are enforced equally and fairly, and that people are heard and represented.
Thank you. Mrs. Kerr.
I have been honored and humbled to be a deputy district attorney going on 17 years. I am known as an aggressive but fair and ethical prosecutor who always represents the voice of the victims while maintaining the highest ethical standards. I have been humbled by the endorsement and the support of our district attorney, Michael Hestrin, the Riverside County Deputy District Attorneys Association, Sheriff Chad Bianco, RSA, and every single law enforcement agency in the entire county, including statewide agencies of the California Statewide Law Enforcement Agency, PORAC, and the California Association of Highway Patrolmen. But on top of that, I add diversity. I have the endorsement of Virginia Blumenthal, several local defense attorneys in the desert, several local practitioners in the civil field, and family law. In addition to that, I have the endorsement of several judges, including Judge Wells, who's the judge retiring from the seat, and who openly tells people that he cannot wait for me to fill his shoes. But most importantly, I have the endorsement of the Crime Victims United, a group that I have fought for the past 17 years. I promise to bring the work ethic that my father taught me at an early age, to always try to improve yourself, to learn from your failures, to fall down, to get back up. And I will continue to hold that belief as I become your judge for Judicial Seat 28.
Thank you. Mr. Swanson, you are next.
What I bring to the table here is that I have a lot of experience in the judicial system. I've been an attorney for 25 years. I sat as a pro tem for the last 4 years, so I've actually been doing the job as a judge, as a temporary judge. And it wouldn't be much of a transition to move from the position that I'm in now into actually being a Superior Court judge. In addition to that, I have the 25 years of experience in all the different areas of law: civil, criminal, family law, and real estate. I also have the compassion based because of the experiences that I've had in my life, such as the losses that I've experienced. So I understand and will hear the victims as they appear in court. So I can listen to the victims. I have the experience. I also have the education, and I also have the integrity because I'm fair, firm, and honest. And with the demeanor that I have a very easy demeanor, and I don't get mad about things. I just work through problems. It's important to find solutions to problems as opposed to blaming people for problems. And as a pro tem, I would sit in court and make sure that the individuals that were in front of me had their day in court and also had the opportunity to feel like they were actually part of the system and were heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Nunn.
Thank you for this opportunity to introduce myself and just tell you my experience and what I would bring to the table. As Ms. Kirk has mentioned, we have often experienced as we go through this process that most people don't even vote for judge because they have no idea who you are. They know they see a name, they maybe see a ballot designation, but they don't know who you are. I am the only person running for seat number 4 that is both an appellate attorney and I've done trials. I've done, I mentioned in my opening statement, I've done rape trials, child molestation trials. I did the To Catch a Predator Dateline cases back in 2008 and 2009. I have practiced appellate law at every level in this state. I have practiced at our local misdemeanor appellate division. I have practiced at our district court of appeal doing felony and habeas work, and I have argued in the California Supreme Court as well, which is not an opportunity most DAs get to experience, and I have been fortunate and lucky enough to have that opportunity. I think that perspective, coupled with my personal experience as I'm a child of the Inland Empire. I've grown up in multiple cities because my parents divorced, like Mr. Keel. I lived in Reno Valley, Pomona, every area practically in the Inland Empire, and I invested in this community. And I experienced that with mental health in my job and in my personal life. I think gives me a unique empathy perspective that will allow everyone to be heard and everybody to have their day in court. And it's for this reason that I am also endorsed by District Attorney Michael Hestron, Sheriff Chad Bianco, Crime Victim United, like Ms. Kirk, and I believe in excess of 15 law enforcement agencies countywide. I am also endorsed by community leaders such as County Supervisor Kevin Jeffries and County Supervisor Karen Spiegel. And because these people recognize that I would bring a unique perspective to seat number 4, and I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Mr. Stone.
And thank you to all of the candidates who came out tonight. We've heard a lot of great things, a lot of good ideas on how to build our courts and keep them growing and progressing. For over 7 years, I've been a prosecutor of sexual assault, child abuse, human trafficking, and elder abuse cases. These are some of the most heart-wrenching cases as you take children and special victims and walk them through the most difficult part of their life. Sometimes they are believed in court and we get a conviction, and sometimes just having the opportunity to be heard and recognized is what they need. Because of my work as a prosecutor, I have been endorsed by law enforcement agencies all across the county in all regions, by DA Mike Hestron, by Sheriff Chad Bianco, and by Crime Victims United, a statewide organization that advocates for the victims of crime. But if you don't believe those endorsements in me being the most qualified candidate for this job, I'm also supported by Public Defender Steve Harmon. I'm also supported by the leading conflict panel defense attorneys for all regions of the county: Virginia Blumenthal, Paul Gretsch, and Barbara Brand from out in the desert. The fact that both law enforcement and defense attorneys recognize that I'm the most qualified person for the job should ring true to everybody. The fact that the judge who I am running to replace has also endorsed me, and DA Hester, should speak volumes about my qualifications, my integrity, and my compassion for all sides involved. I promise to give just outcomes and a meaningful opportunity to be heard for every party who appears in front of me. Thank you again, and don't forget to vote on June 7th or before.
Thank you. Mr. Isaac.
And thank you for the opportunity to get to address you this evening. I started off by saying that experience matters, and I'll finish by saying that. The fact of the matter is that as I sit in my 10th year on the bench, I have more experience than about 70% of all judges on Riverside Superior Court. We have a young bench. I have more experience than about 70% in all areas of the law. You hear a lot of things, victims, crimes. Again, crime is important, but not the only thing, and probably not what a new judge is going to hear anyway. I've been in family law, hundreds of cases, civil matters, hundreds of cases, thousands of cases, and I have a criminal assignment now where I'm doing the job where I have to make decisions whether or not someone goes to jail or not, or they get a break and they get to get in some program. I'm doing that for you on a day-to-day basis. So it's a known quantity. It's like, using a sports analogy real quick, I like the NFL draft. I was watching it last week. It was on. It's exciting. They're drafting these young men. But we know that some of these draft picks, they turn out to be bust. But I see Russell Wilson got traded from Seattle to Denver. He's a known quantity. He got traded for 3 draft picks. I'm Russell Wilson. I'm the known quantity. I'll make the best judge for you. Vote June 7th. Vote for me for office 26. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody who gave us all your time tonight and who showed up. I want to thank follower courts reporter Amy McCoy for leading the team to select the questions tonight and the submissions and some that they generated on their own. Mail-in voting begins in 5 days. Those ballots will go out on May 9th. It's my goal that Riverside County is going to have more bubbles filled in on ballots this year than they've ever had, and that the voting will be more informed. I've heard from several people who say they're very eager to see the footage, to learn, to not be shrugging when they get to the judge names on the ballot. I would like to conclude by directing people to the Follow Our Courts website. We have got one story that has all of the candidates' profiles. It lists the endorsements, it lists who's donated to the campaigns, and it has links to the campaign websites. So if you have been inspired to support, to ask questions, to reach out and contact, or to donate to a campaign, you'll find all of the links there that you can do that to make sure that you are voting for the people that represent you to sit on that bench. Thank you, and have a good night.